Hi everyone, this is me playing my HP next level recursion deck. I've featured this video on my channel previously, so check out my earlier videos for an explanation on how this deck works. Today I'm playing up against Leela, playing up against Caster, a pretty good player, so this is going to be a very tough match, accentuated by the fact that Leela can absolutely rip apart a corp early on. Now, I don't consider it the best matchup because of several reasons. Just like NBN, I need to score 4 agendas to win, which means if I'm going to win the game, I need to trigger Leader's ability at least 3 times. That's not good. Also, I do not pack any tag punishment at all, so account siphon will be very dreadful. As such, I need to double ice my 2 key centrals on turn 1 to prevent any agenda snipe, because an agenda snipe immediately transform into an account siphon, and that would leave me in a horrible place. This takes precedence over setting up Adonis campaign. There's no question about it. I do want a secure server to set up my Breaker Bay Adonis campaign combo, but that's not going to happen until I find my third piece of ice. I definitely need to protect the centrals first, and that is a weakness against Criminal. I can get away with installing a remote ice on turn 1 against Kate, not against Leela. So he sets up and tries to poke R&D, and this is where next ice comes in handy, because it costs so little to res it. It's not an Ichi or Architect. I can actually afford to play the Hedge Fund on turn 2. And he draws me into my ice on his second turn with Fisk Investment Seminar, so that really helped me quite a bit. Not to mention the fact that I do have a Jackson Howard, so I'm not too worried about that. He inside jobs my hand to find the agenda, because he doesn't want to deal with end run ice, and of course proceeds to account siphon me. So that was an unfortunate turn of events, given that I only had 2 agendas in my hand, but since he had HQ interface, I guess that was expected. Now, how do I recover from this? I still have my Adonis Breaker Bay combo, but I need to protect HQ in case of another siphon, so no brainer, and end the run goes on HQ. Following that, I put another ice on HQ because I don't want him sniping any more of my cards. And to get rid of cards from my hand, I was forced to pitch cards from my hand this turn because Fisk Investment Seminar flooded me, because Leela's ability flooded me. I started my turn with at least 9 or 10 cards. I couldn't play them all, so I had to play Jackson and ditch my ABT, which was fine because I really don't want any agendas in my hand. Now I can set up my Adonis server and end the run with Mother Goddess, which is an amazing card to see early on. Being only a code gate, he can't get through, even though he has 14 credits. And now that I'm on only 2 credits, you might think that I cannot res an Adonis or score an agenda. Well, I'm awesome that way. Because I play Breaker Bay Grid, I can threaten to res the Adonis campaign, and I do exactly that before he accesses my server, after special ordering a zoo. This forces him to trash both the components, or let me get my money, which is not good. You don't want to let the corp get money. But as HB, I will get money sooner or later, and he broke his back, breaking all my assets and upgrades. He's now down to 3 credits, and he's now trying to run my HQ. He clicks through the Eli, which wastes a lot of time, while I gain ground by clicking for credits. Next turn, I can play a hedge fund, and things will go my way again. Meanwhile for him, he's stuck at 3 credits, and there's no way he can get any good money going because he's tagged. He can't play Daily Cars, he can't play KD Jones. So he's in a rut right here. I think it's going to be very difficult for him to climb out of this. He used up all his siphon money to deny me 1 set of assets, which is the right thing to do, but as HB, you just can't keep HB poor. So here he draws for solutions, but what he really is searching for is more money. He gets to install a gang sign here, and this is a bit problematic for me, not because I have agendas in hand. I don't have agendas in hand, that's fine, but because it's not worth trashing even though he's tagged, and I'm not prepared to score agendas at this point. So as agendas accumulate in my hand, things are just going to get worse. It gets worse by the fact that he just drove my Sand City Grid into the bin. I really needed that. If I drew any 3 advanced agenda, I would immediately score it. That would allow me to avoid having agendas leaking to gang sign. Unfortunately, with drive-by killing my Sensitivity Grid, I need to actually set up a secure scoring server. And now that I draw into an NAPD, I might consider scoring it, since my opponent is the poor. Let's see what he does here. He's still only on 4 credits. He tries to draw for more solutions and finds a Faust to siphon me. Not the best idea, not knowing what else is in my server. In this case, it's a 3 subroutine next silver, and he only has 2 cards in hand. So that was a big turning point in the game. He spent 3 of his cards and got nothing done. 3 of his cards plus an account siphon, and did absolutely nothing because the next silver stopped him dead cold. And this is why I really like Nick's dice. It's so good against criminal once it gets going. I doubt he packs Parasite in this deck, and I can really punish him for doing so. In the meantime, I score a Vitruvius because I want to avoid any nasty effects from Gang Sign. So he gets to activate Gang Sign twice, seeing 2 cards each access. He's supposed to reset the cards on each access, but Octagon doesn't allow that. It doesn't matter for me because I know that he cannot steal anything in my hand. He only has 0 credits, he cannot steal any PD. Yes, and I bound something. The eyes on R&D, I think. So this is actually a weak point that my opponent could easily capitalize on, but he was too poor to do so. The fact that there's no ice on R&D right now is a problem that I need to fix, that I did not fix this turn. I think playing the Jackson might not have been the most ideal play. This gives him a window. If I were my opponent here, if I were caster, I would have ran R&D here because it only cost me 3 credits to see 1 card. I think it could be worth it, because HB is just going to continue icing up the servers from here on out. And if he knows his economic suite very well, it's probably not a good idea to delay the game for too long, because my campaigns are just going to get out of hand, as my Eve campaign will here. And now I see up the gap on R&D, making it impossible for him to find agendas anywhere. That being said, I'm hiding an NAPD in archives, because I'm banking on the fact that he does not have a Dirty Laundry available. I don't think he runs Dirty Laundry, and even if he does, he has to contend with the eyes on archives. So he clears the tags finally because he sets up his Earthrise Hotel. Earthrise is pretty good in this deck because it powers Faust, and it also draws him into his money, which is good for him. The problem with Earthrise is that it costs him 2 clicks and 4 credits to get rid of the Siphon tags. So there's anti-synergy there, and yes, even though Siphon is the best criminal card, it anti-synergizes with so many new cards right now that putting them in the same deck makes it very difficult to play. My opponent had to waste time to clear the tags and resources as well. And this allowed me to set up a second scoring remote with a Sansan City Grid inside, and now I'm pretty rich. I get an Adonis going on the protected remote for simple reasons. I can easily overwrite it when I do want to score an agenda. At this point I don't want to draw cards, because if I flood my hand with agendas, he's going to win off Gang Sign, and I can't have that. So I rather play it for the late game, which works very well. Criminals cannot handle the late game very well, more so if they're playing turntable. Turntable is basically a dead console against HB, especially one that's not running 3-pointer agendas. It's not very good at all. Because HB does not have any agendas that are dependent on agenda tokens besides Vitruvius. Now he finally finds his money in the form of bank job, so now he actually gets a foothold on this game. In the meantime, I do get lucky because for this entire game, there are only 3 agendas. There's still 8 more agendas hiding in my deck of 26 cards. That is a very loaded R&D. Thankfully, I'm able to keep him out here because I have a feeling the next card was going to be an agenda. Nope, it's an Ash. Perfect. The perfect card. The Ash shall go into the Sansan remote, protecting it from any siege. At this point, he can get through any server he pleases because he has his entire breaker suite out and has a decent number of credits. So now I'm basically looking to fast advance my agendas, because if I chuck agendas into remotes, he can easily snipe them. It's not that bad because my remotes are incredibly taxing. If he makes one wrong guess and runs a remote that turns out to contain an Eve instead of an agenda, he's screwed. Okay, so he inside jobs my remote that contains no agendas. He knows that, but he wants to get rid of the stuff in my remote. I res 2 architects, which forces out a fairy after the inside job, and the Ash will cost him a bomb. He decides to break the ashtrays, trash the Ash, trash the Sansan, because he knows that I'm looking to score using Sansan. So he made the right choice there actually. even though he did not deny my economy at all, you really cannot deny HB's economy. Instead, he denied my scoring route, and that really hurts because I'm waiting to trigger my team sponsorships that are lying on the table. Not that it matters because I haven't drawn an agenda yet, but the point is, once I draw an agenda, I need to begin scoring. So this is actually a very prime scoring window. He only has 2 credits, he has 6 cards, which makes it easy for Faust to get through, but Faust cannot get through Turing, so this is why I placed Turing on the Eve remote. The Eve remote is more secure than the Architect remote because there are more eyes, and yeah, basically there are more eyes. Now I install something into the remote, and as dealer, I really don't know if you actually go for that remote. It's very hard to tell if that's an ABT or not. So he bank drops me. If I were leader, I would actually suspect that that is an agenda, and I would probably go for it at this point. But if you are the Leela Patel player, and you see that the co-op HB has managed to build such a very strong infrastructure for scoring, you know that it's probably game over. Now that wasn't an agenda in the Architect remote, that was a Jackson Howard, but this ABT here is an agenda, and if he knows, he can actually run it and steal it. I'm banking on the fact that, or rather trying to bluff him into not running it, because if he runs it, he has to spend almost all his resources, and that, if he doesn't hit an agenda, would open up a very wide scoring window for me. So here, I do score the ABT, and here is where things get tricky because Octagon triggers are not reliable. So what I do, so according to the rules, when there are multiple triggers that occur, the players whose turn it is, which is mine, will resolve all their triggers first. So I get to resolve the ABT and the team sponsorship first, and I decide to resolve team sponsorship by installing Vitruvius from hand and Ash from archives. Then I trigger the ABT, but I choose not to trigger it. So I pass it over to the runner, who then can trigger his 2 gang signs and dealer's ability. Now, he would actually, in an actual game, have bounced my Vitruvius before using the gang sign access. That would have actually allowed him to score the Vitruvius from hand, and would allow him to bounce more, one more card, which would have been pretty painful, I have to admit. But because Octagon messed up, he chose to let it slip, and we move on with the game. So here he finds an ABT off the top, which is pretty problematic as well. This exposes the weakness of my R&D, but that cost him a lot of resources. It cost him 2 clicks, it cost him 3 credits. So this is pretty good. I mean, R&D is not airtight, but it essentially is. And now with the next silver R&D, it's even less likely that he can do anything about my R&D. And here he attempts to go for my remote to get the agenda, except that it's not agenda as we know it. He clicks through the Turing, he pays 4 credits for bronze, or maybe he breaks it with Faust. He actually has a lot of choices with regards to how he wants to break my ice, but with Earthrise gone, he has to think carefully about breaking with Faust, because every time he ditches a card, he needs to spend a click to recover the card that he lost. In this case, he does decide to go for the cards on bronze, and for Mother Goddess, probably another 2 cards. And all he accesses is the Sensei City Grid. I thought of bumping the trace up here, I decided not to. In retrospect, I probably should have, given that I have an Eve running in the background, which he didn't bother to trash. Again, money assets with HB are a case of, if you don't, even if you trash them, HB will still find money somehow, somewhere. But the more you trash, the harder it is for the corp to do anything, the slower the game gets, and that might be to the runner's benefit. Not so much for leader, because criminals are not that good when it comes to the late game in general. So here I make a risky play. I decide to install Ash and NAPD, both from archives with team sponsorship. Now I'm on 6 points after scoring the Vitruvius from Sensen. He bounces the NAPD back to my hand, and he accesses it with gang sign. But once again, NAPD saves me because he doesn't have 4 credits. He is dirt poor. So this is huge. That was actually a big mistake because he would have been on match point if he actually managed to steal the NAPD. I probably shouldn't have been so overzealous with recovering the NAPD from archives. But in any case, it doesn't matter because I top decked the winning 3-2 agenda. That was anticlimactic, wasn't it? Even though that seemed like a convincing victory by my part, my opponent did a very good job in disrupting my tempo. Early on, his credit denial was very strong, and later on, Leela's ability proved to be a pain in the neck because he kept bouncing back the fresh installs from team sponsorship. And that is really, really awful. The fact that he kept trying to deny my upgrades in Ash and Sand City Grid forced me to play the shell game. I had to install Never Advance in 3 or 4 deep remotes and hope that he doesn't run the agendas while running all the useless assets or upgrades. And it so happened this game that, yeah, exactly that happened. He didn't run my AVT, he ran my Sense instead, and that cost him way too many resources for a deck that is very reliant on account siphon. Yeah, but it ended up being a toss-up really. If the excesses had been the other way around, he could easily have won. Team sponsorship was pretty vital. Even though it enabled bank job, it also allowed me to cycle my ash from my heap, and that was very vital. Getting multiple ashes to stick makes it very painful for the runner and allows me to have greater security in scoring my agendas. Gang sign on my opponent's part is a very good tech against NBN in general, especially the Nerf Hub. It's not that good against HB really, because this game I could easily have tossed agendas into the remotes when I drew them. Also, it helped a lot that I saw very few agendas this game. So most of the game I was on 0 or 1 card in HQ all the time, making it gang sign pretty irrelevant. But of course, it did pressure me into instantly scoring agendas the moment I drew into them. It didn't affect me much though, so I must say gang sign is a very matchup dependent card. It didn't really work out this game for my opponent. This game also demonstrates how resilient HB is against account siphon despite having 0 form of tech punishment. Eli is still one of the most amazing eyes in the game, especially against Criminal. The typical solution Criminal employs is corroded with Data Sucker, and that is easily shut out as HB because you are always motivated to install ice, so you can always easily get at least 1 ice on each central, shutting off Data Sucker or at least forcing the runner to tax themselves just to get Data Sucker tokens, which makes it less worth it. Unlike NBN, where if you play Eli in NBN, chances are the criminal would easily be able to get 10 or 11 Data Sucker counters and be able to repeatedly run through your Eli for 2 credits. You can't do that against HB. My HQ was Eli next silver, which costs 4 plus 4 plus the number of next ice reds. That is easily more than 10 in this scenario. There's no point in siphoning me. So his account siphons were dead cards, and because of that, he had very little money to play the entire game with. Resource denial of the runner proved to be one of the key reasons why I won this game. HB's strong engineering and architecture proved to be too much for criminals to handle, and this is one of the strong reasons to play HB over NBN. Even though they both play an 11 agenda suite and rely on fast advance somewhat, HB has more capabilities when it comes to remote gaming, and I hope you can see that as presented in this game. Thanks for watching and happy net running. Hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.